Welcome to Fueling Your Legacy, hosted by Samuel Knickerbocker. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a new, stronger foundation essential in creating your legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. Welcome back to Fuel Your Legacy, and today is Book Review Wednesday. I always love these days because one, it means I've read something, I've improved my life a little bit or hope to have, and two, I get to take and look at somebody else's worldview, somebody else's view of how they are experiencing life or what they're passionate about, and see what of those, the overall reaching thing adds value to my life, right? And that's really where I love it because I'm thinking, how can I improve my own self and how can I gain from others? So super excited about that. Again, we have about two and a half weeks until Strengthen Your World. I'm gonna dive through and just rush through some of these just super exciting things that are happening over the next little bit. But I'm gonna be out of town next week. So the week of August, I'm gonna be gone. First week of October, gone. On a cruise, so that'll be fun. I'll give you some updates on what happened there and how that went. But the 2 weeks after, October 18th and 19th, I'm going to be speaking at Strengthen Your World. And if you'd like some discount tickets there, I think it's about $400 off once you use my speaker code. Then you can get access to that 2-day event about masculine and feminine energy and how they work together, and how each of us, doesn't matter your gender or your sex or whatever, it's how each of us have masculine and feminine in us, and how at different points in our life and in our relationship we have to take on different roles, and how to actually make those meld into a beautiful relationship. So super excited for that. I'm glad I'm going to be speaking there. Just an awesome lineup of people there, put on by Travis Brady. So that is Strengthen Your World. So if you would like discount tickets to that, text SYW to the phone number 385-263-7699, and I can get you some discounted tickets to that. And then the next week I'm going to be speaking at, or the next weekend rather, I'm going to be speaking at a business meeting for my company. Super excited about that. And then the next week I'm putting on my own event, the Legacy and Wealth Workshop. That one is fantastic. If you're a client of mine, fantastic, because you're going to get an extra special discount code. And if you're not a client of mine, that's okay. You still get about 2/3 of a discount. So good discount there. But for that, you need to type Legacy and Wealth Workshop and send that to the same number, 385-263-7699. That's going to be happening on November 2nd here in Sandy at Sandy Hyatt House in Utah. And all these things, this is what I'm really passionate about. If you haven't guessed that from me speaking and talking on this podcast all the time, that's what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about sharing my message, helping families to really overcome trial and difficulty in their life, and really gain a deep sense of self-love and fulfillment inside of themselves, gratitude for what they have moving forward. And just, I love all of that. And so I'm super excited to share that with you guys there. Today, we're going to be talking about Starting at the Finish Line. It's a book written by our guest on Friday, Matthew Newman. And really what has changed me from reading this book, I had already done an interview with him about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and got to hear his story from himself. But reading the book, the story is one thing, but all the little enlightenment pieces are what's really important. And he said, when we had talked earlier, that he's had lots of people read this book and think, man, this book was written just for me. Thank you so much for writing this. And really, he's just writing down his thoughts and the lessons he's learned. And I think that in and of itself is a key lesson to learn, that too many people, they go through life and they think, oh, my life is of no value, or I'm not contributing to this relationship or to my business or whatever. The thing to think about is you don't even know that you're contributing, but the way that you look at life is unique to you. The way you experience life is unique to you. And so please don't ever feel like you are a burden on a conversation or that you're not adding value. The more that you actually just talk and share what your thoughts are, people all the time don't think the way that you think. And so as you share your thoughts, then people are challenging their own beliefs and actually really exploring different ways of looking at this world. And that is what I believe the key to this whole book is starting at the finish line. He's just sharing his thoughts. So I read a lot of scriptures. I love to read scriptures and to learn about people's life in ancient times, or at least as they're recorded to be. And the one thing that I found interesting is I've had discussions with many people. Oh, was this inspired? Was it written by God, or who wrote this? Who said to write it this way? And the way I've always looked at scriptures is it's somebody's journal, right? They're writing down things that are impressed on their heart, and they're using the best they know how, the language that they've been given, to convey a feeling. And just if we look at it from that bare bones of it's conveying a feeling, those feelings could have been inspired by God or Allah or whoever you believe is there, right? For me, it's God and his son, Jesus Christ, right? But it doesn't matter, and it doesn't really matter who it is, but rather what are those sacred words? And I believe they're, in many cases, they're just like somebody's journal or somebody's diary of how they're feeling. They're writing down their feelings. The reason that's important, the reason I bring that up is I want to encourage you to start writing down your feelings, writing down your thoughts about how you feel about certain subjects, how you have different conversations, how you felt in a different environment. All those things, those can be in future generations looked back as, man, this is so inspirational. If I only had thought this way, right? You're going to be giving people hope by you sharing the way that you experience life. And that is why I do this podcast. Another reason. I mean, there's so many reasons why I do it. I know that not everybody loves me. I know that not everybody connects with me. But if there's one little phrase that I can say that's going to change somebody's life, I'm going to take the chance of saying a bunch of things just so that one thing that I can say can change that person's life or change your life. And that's what I get excited about. So that's really where this book came in for me, is just an incredible example of somebody doing something that he thought was ordinary, him cathartically processing his experience, and by doing so, giving hope and joy and love and light to so many other people. And I think that every one of us have that in us if we just choose to share. And so that's why I'm asking you just to consider, how could I share more in my relationship, in my business, at my place of worship? How can I share more? Even with your children, it's so funny. Go through life sometimes and we think, oh, I've got to be this shining example to my children. I don't ever want them to know of any mistakes that I make. And in reality, one, they're going to find out anyways. They know you're not perfect, and any attempt to appear perfect just comes off as incongruent and not in integrity with them. And they see that, they can feel it. And so there's no point in sugarcoating stuff like, you made mistakes when you were a kid, I made mistakes when I was a kid. Better to be honest with our children than to try and pull the wool over their eyes and be like, we were perfect and you need to be perfect. That's never going to work. I don't think. It definitely didn't work with me. And so because of that, be more vulnerable, be willing to share your experiences with your children. One of my favorite things that I loved when I was dating and when I finally met Charlie was I could hand her journals from when I was about 8 years old up until 22 when I met her, journals of my life. And she was able to read my life, read my thought processes, read all of my mistakes. And there's plenty of them, right? Read all of my mistakes, how I processed through them, how I overcame them. She was able to read all of that so that by the time I asked her to marry me, she felt like she knew me because she knew all of my struggles, all my inner turmoil, the things that I beat myself up about, the things that I'm confident about. She knew all of that. She knew what she was getting into by reading my story. It's like if you've read all of Harry Potter, you probably know Harry Potter better than Harry Potter knows Harry Potter, right? Because you've seen him interact with everybody and you've been able to see all of the minute interactions outside of his relationship that explain more about his culture, his system, and everything that's been part of his life from the storyline. So with that, one of the things that I love that he mentions in this book, I've just taken a few little sentences or phrases out of this book because I think you should go read it. It's a fantastic book. It's a short read, only like 100 pages. You can blow through it in a day or two. But it's life transformational. I mean, it really can change the way that you view how important some things are versus how important other things are in your life. It really puts into perspective what is most important at any given moment. And that's what I love about the book. But one of the things he says right at the beginning is he says, lack of clarity promotes confusion. Okay, and when you think about why would he use the word promote, and I don't know, I mean, based on having a conversation with him, he probably just used that word because that's what it felt right to use. But the word promote is such an interesting phrase because it's almost like it's encouraging, it's hoping for, it's striving to create confusion in your life. And so anytime there's lack of clarity, then that's really the next step is how can we help people be more confused or chaos. And so the antithesis of that is to gain clarity. More clarity, or the essence of clarity, demotes, detracts, eliminates confusion. And I think that's so powerful, especially when you hear a story about what he went through and why he was kind of experiencing this and why having clarity of purpose and goal was so important to him. So lack of clarity promotes confusion. Just think about that and think, where in my life am I feeling the most confused? And as you say, okay, this is where I'm feeling most confused, then go back and find out, well, what exactly am I not clear on? And even just clarity on what you're not clear on can eliminate a lot of the confusion. Clarity on what you don't know can eliminate a lot of the confusion. So just think about that phrase, lack of clarity promotes confusion. Another thing he said is, well, I guess this is not what he said, but it's something I pulled out of it, but how do you take bad news? And then he said, attitude is 80% of recovery, right? And I sincerely believe that how we experience our environment completely changes our experience and our environment, right? And so attitude really dictates 80% of it. Now, in certain circumstances, now he got cancer, so to a degree, cancer is going to do whatever cancer wants to do, and he repeats that multiple times through the book. He's not like pulling the wool over his eyes and thinking, oh, I'm just this happy person and I never have to deal with it. But he chose that all of the fear, all of the negativity, all of the reality, and in scare quotes, right? All of the reality that he was facing, focusing on it wasn't helpful. It didn't put him in a state of mind where he was happy. And so he chose a positive attitude. And he contributes about 80% of his recovery to that positive attitude. Now, that's dealing with cancer. Guess what else can be cancerous in our lives? A negative attitude can be cancerous. Backbiting, gossip, shaming, malnutrition. I mean, there's so many things that can be cancerous. Even your cell phone, right? I've been thinking about this, and maybe this is a little bit too much potty humor, but going to the bathroom without your cell phone, okay? Just think about that. How long are you really ever on the toilet? Maybe 15 minutes if you're really, really on there for a long time, right? And for some reason, for myself, I'm guilty of this, and I'll put my first hand up, right? You're guilty of using your phone on the toilet. And if you don't have it, you're like, man, what do? I can't spend 15 minutes alone with myself just thinking about just myself and my life and how I can improve it. Like, I always need this technology in my hand. And that is systemic, and I believe that can be cancerous in my life. So literally this morning, I was like, okay, I'm no longer going to take my cell phone to the bathroom with me, just so I can get like a few minutes of peace in my life where I'm not thinking about other things. But it's that simple. You know, it's like, what other things are cancerous in your life? What other things do you feel like they're going to do what they're going to do and you have no control over, but your attitude is going to shift the whole experience of that. So how do you take bad news? I work in finance, and that's something where sometimes there's bad news. Sometimes you have to give people news that they're not thrilled about. How do they take it? Do they take it with a gloomy outlook and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm just drowning? Or do they say, okay, now that I have clarity, now I know how to proceed. So this is one of the biggest reasons somebody doesn't want to look at their finances, is they're scared to see what is. And the irony is, until you see what is, until you actually know what is, you can't make any changes. I mean, you can make, I take that back. You can make 1,000 changes, but you have no idea if they're going to actually help you accomplish your goal, because you don't know what those changes or how those changes might affect your future. And so understanding what changes to make is the whole thing. And so somebody could look at my business, and they did a few weeks ago. I had somebody come in and look at my business, and looking at my business, it's just a bunch of bad news. They're like, Sam, you're failing here. You're underperforming here. You need to improve these numbers, this number, right? These are numbers that I had no idea that I was underperforming on. And some people are like, while this is happening, because we all got a chance to get our numbers kind of looked at, but while this is happening, some people are like, oh, I'm embarrassed. I can't believe I'm getting up here. My numbers look terrible. I'm thinking, man, isn't this so exciting that somebody better than us, somebody who understands our business more minutely than us, is going to take the time out of their day to show us all of the areas where we can improve. So it's all about perspective, how you take bad news. Is bad news even bad, or is it just giving you clarity and feedback on how to improve? And that's something I would encourage you to start playing with. Is bad news even bad? There was a song I quoted a few weeks ago, but what if the worst thing that could happen is happening and it's actually the best thing ever, right? That's an interesting thought process to think about. What if the worst thing that could happen is the best thing for you and ultimately becomes the best thing that could happen? So that's an interesting thing. The next phrase that he uses in the book is, what things in life have been a tragedy at first but ended up being a blessing? It kind of plays into that same lyric, right? What was terrible? What was the worst possible thing that happened that ultimately ended up becoming a blessing? And I encourage you to take a minute, maybe that's 15, 20 minutes that I spoke about earlier, and just write down, take a pen, piece of paper, and write down, hey, what are the worst things in my life that ended up being a blessing? Or what are the worst things that have ever happened to me, and what did I gain from it? What are the blessings that came from it? Learning to simply shift your perspective on some of the things that you believe are the most tragic aspects of your life into something that turn them into the most positive aspects of your life. That one little skill for me has completely altered, changed, transformed, just recreated my existence by choosing to identify what blessings came from tragedy in my life. Yeah, I don't know how else to express it, but that's what I speak on, honestly, is helping people walk through that process. I went into this extensively a few weeks ago about that process. It's a 4-step process to help you overcome any challenges. The first thing, write down what happened, remove all emotion, what are the facts. Then write down, how do I feel about all of this, all of your negative things, everything about that. And then ask, what might also be true? What are the other circumstances? What are other people's points of view? What are other things that might be true about that? And then lastly, what are you grateful for? What blessings came from that experience? That 4-part process transformed my life by restructuring and reframing multiple experiences in my life to take the moments that were the worst thing, and now they are the fuel that guides me. They are my mission, and my everything that I do, I focus on is to help people experience that same thing. So that is one thing. The other thing that he says in this book, and I love this because it comes back down to the cancer, but he said, this was my battle, keyword mean my battle with cancer, not cancer's battle with me. He said, I own my perspective, cancer did not. So many times we're in experiences, we have children, we have a spouse that's not in the way we want him to be. We have an employer who our boss just isn't treating us the way we want to. Our job is not how we want it to be, right? All of these things, we victimize ourselves. We remove accountability from ourselves because it's too painful to accept that maybe we have something to contribute to this situation. And what I love about this is even when he's on his deathbed, sort of, I mean, he has cancer, he's fighting cancer, rather than admitting that cancer was this thing that he couldn't get away from, he said, no, I'm here to battle cancer. I'm here to defeat cancer. It's not cancer's battle with me. It's my battle with cancer. I own myself, my life, my perspective, and the cancer doesn't own it. The cancer is just a thing that's happening. When you read a lot of religious texts, there's a phrase that comes up often, and it's either, and it came to pass, or nevertheless, or, and so it happened, right? There's these phrases that basically, in essence of the phrase, they're saying, whatever you're experiencing right now, it's going to be over soon. And then what, right? What happens when this is over? What are you planning for in the future? And to stay in perspective there, we have to take ownership for our life. We have to take ownership for the experiences that we're going through. It's difficult for a lot of people to take that much ownership of their life. I think, in my experience, that is the reason it's so difficult is because it then means that they can change. And the fact that they can change, they can create, is terrifying to them. And then they reject it, and then they just go back in their hole and put their head in the sand. If you can't see me, then if I can't see you, then you can't see me. And that's how they live life. And that's unfortunate because it's just not getting them anywhere, right? The only way to really experience life in fullness is to take complete ownership of everything in life. And as you do that, there's no more anger. There's no more malice. There's no more hatred towards other people. There's no more even sorrow. There's very little sorrow, right? There's things that happen in our life that are sad, but because your perspective is everything in life that's happening to me is happening for me and I'm growing because of it, then is it really sad that you've been given a gift? I mean, how many people cry that they've been given a gift unless they just wanted something else, right? But I just don't have expectations necessarily of like what's going to happen in the future. I sit there and I think, okay, this is happening. How can I maximize this? And Matthew Newman, in this book, throughout the book, maintains perspective of this is his life. He's living it on his terms, and he's going to make it happen. The other thing that he said, that again, these are just little things that I've just drawn from this book that I love. This is the last one I'm going to cover today, but it's difficult to put into words how going through hell becomes a better fight when you're not in it alone, right? So many people think they're alone. They think that they are the only ones going through their struggle. And then because of that, they are scared to share with other people their sorrow, their heartache, their pain. And what I've experienced is by opening myself up, by being willing to be vulnerable, be the first one to say that something's hard, right? Be the first one to share that. It actually allows other people in. And as you do that, you gain camaraderie. There's a phrase that I love, and it's crisis creates connection. Crisis creates connection, right? That's so important in our lives because we spend our whole life trying to remove crisis from our lives. And in doing so, we often miss out on the connection that we could be feeling with an individual if we just chose to go through crisis. And we were at camping this summer with my wife's family, and I don't know what happened or when it happened, but I do not like camping. It is not my favorite thing to do. My father-in-law was picking up on that. He's like, man, Sam, thank you so much for putting up with our family and choosing to be out here. And I'm like, no, really, I'm choosing to go through crisis with my in-laws and with my wife and my children. I'm choosing to go through this crisis. I'm not forced to. I'm not feeling like a victim up there. I'm not feeling like somebody talked me into it and I don't want to be up there. I know it's a conscious choice. It doesn't make it easier for me. It doesn't make me love camping anymore. But it helps me understand, look, I'm choosing to go through this crisis because I want the connection of my wife. I want the connection of my children. I want to be able to experience that. And that is something that I think is often overlooked. How often are you choosing to go to battle? How often are you choosing to go into crisis with your family and putting yourself in situations that are unknown, are uncomfortable, to force yourself to become more unified? And I really believe that going through hell or going through these crises becomes so much easier of a fight, better of a fight, more valiant of a fight when you are not in it alone. And I think the only way or only reason you might be in it alone is if you choose to be in it alone. There are millions of people on this planet, millions of people going through similar things. If you don't believe me, go get on Instagram, go get on YouTube, go get on Facebook, and just start looking for people with trial. Now, I wouldn't go so far into it that that's all of your friend group, because if you do that, then it's really easy to sit in there and wallow in self-pity. But the point is, other people are going through this, and other people need a battle buddy. They need somebody who can help them go through this experience. And that could be you. You could be somebody's savior in that essence. You could be somebody's reason to live, reason to believe, and reason to overcome trial. And that is so inspiring to me. I mean, this whole book was fantastic. I'm super excited for you guys to get to read it. There's going to be a link to the book here in the show notes. And I'm excited to see what you guys get out of it, because it really has shifted my perspective. One other thing that I'm going to share that I think he shares in the interview as well, but it just was really potent in the book as well. When we talk about what's important to us, and using my phone when I'm around my children, after doing the interview with him and reading this book, I have made another conscious choice to really cut down how much I use my phone when I'm around my kids, because that's a few moments where I'm able to be present and create that relationship. That if you are not doing that, if you're just mindlessly on your phone while you're there with your family, you're missing out on valuable experiences with your family. So I just invite you to think about that. How can you eliminate technology a little bit more from your life when you're around those who are your loved ones? And super excited again for Friday. It's going to blow your mind. One of my favorite episodes that I've recorded, just from a story perspective. And with that being said, again, if you want tickets to Strengthen Your World, to have some of these paradigm shifts in your life, then you actually can get them. Just type SYW for Strengthen Your World, or you can do Strengthen Your World, but SYW is better, to 385-263-7699, and we will get you some discount tickets to that event, October 18th and 19th. Have a wonderful week, and we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy. Thanks for joining us today. If what you heard resonated with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me so I can give you a shout out on the next episode. And thanks to all those who have left a review. It helps spread the message of what it really takes to build a legacy that lasts. Catch you next time on Fueling Your Legacy.